try it for an hour then.
Sounds good. You bet. As soon as this is done uploading, I'll get you a link so that you can like
Great.
share it or boost it or whatever.
Well, that sounds amazing. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Yeah, you bet. I am super excited for this. I also haven't done this in a while. I used to do this, like this used to be my job. Now I have a new job.
Cool. What's your new job?
I play D&D for a living.
That's an amazing job.
Hey, thanks. I love my job.
Your background, it reminds me of Index Card RPG.
It is from Index Card RPG. The new Index Card RPG volume. Not that I'm trying to plug somebody else's thing or anything. Hank doesn't pay me to say this or anything. This is the symbol in my background from the old one. This is the nice shiny new one that just came out.
It's a great game.
I'm a big fan.
I'm a big fan of Hankrin Furnell, I think.
Yep.
Runehammer. Like he was a big inspiration on my D&D style.
Nice. Speaking of, you should introduce yourself again now that we're all uploaded and live and everything while I put this book back and not look like an idiot.
Awesome. Hey folks, I'm Tanner Wilson. I'm a game designer, I'm a writer, and I'm a huge fan of rain puddles. And I've made a game called Magical Mystery. So I'm here to talk about that and just talk about role-playing games in general.
Excellent. So I understand that before we get into just general conversation, because I'm sure we'll run off the end of the earth with that, you are making one, yes?
Well, it has been made. It's published. It's out in the world.
Oh, then you should get me a link and I'll put it in the YouTube description. And
stuff, yeah, I would love to do that. Yeah.
Magical School Academy?
Mystery.
No.
Magic School Mystery. Let me show you let me grab my copy and show you.
Oh, even better.
Oh, I should have been prepared. Okay. There we go. All right. So this is Magic School Mystery. Let's see if we can get a good image of
that's
that.
pretty.
And this is the
holy crap! Look how big that thing is. How big is that?
Let's see. We're looking at around 240 some pages.
Nice. That's cool. So big enough, it's got lots of content, but not so big you can bash your roommate's head in with it.
Yeah, it's one of those more rules light scenarios. I make sure to cut the fat and I don't go too far.
When we're done with this part and we swing to general conversation, remind me that you said that.
Yeah, sure.
That's really funny. Anyway, so what makes yours, at the risk of sounding like a jerk, what makes yours special in comparison to some other system somebody might buy?
Well, absolutely. There's a ton of Magic School things going around there, but I would say I think there's 3 reasons.
Oh, you came prepared.
Oh yeah, because when it comes down to so obviously this is trying to tell the stories of Harry Potter, the Magic School genre, Harry Potter or like the Worst Witch, that in general. But those genres, those stories are specifically mystery solving stories. So this specifically is a mystery solving game where the entire focus is on the mystery and everything revolves around that.
That's awesome. Is there a mechanical weight to that? How does that work?
Well, the way it works is it's quite cooperative. Of course, the game runner, which we call the headmaster, starts the game with, they make the pitch or the hook, the inciting incident, and they choose a few suspects, but they don't know who did it or why.
Well, hold on. The person at the other end of the table doesn't actually know who.
Correct.
Who the who is and the who done it. That's awesome.
Yeah, they have no clue. They know who the possible people are. There's 3 suspects, and one of them is responsible. But this is how you figure it out. So we have a sheet called the mystery sheet right here, and I'll send you just a PDF.
Oh, I love that. It's got lots of personality.
When the headmaster introduces a mysterious event to the players, like, okay, there's a light on in that window, it shouldn't be there. They're going to write a leading question down about that event into one of the boxes on the mystery sheet. And then when the characters, using their abilities, try to investigate that question, and that's the game, there's the game part of it. If they succeed, then their player makes up the answer.
Oh,
so I ask you who's cast that light at the tower, and you would say, oh, well, it's Professor Ferdinand, and he's up to no good. There's something going on there. And so then we know that he's doing something. And then as we keep playing, your answers to these questions have to refer back to previous questions or answers.
And then you slowly build up until, I mean, how do you figure out, how do you go from three? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, because it's referring back to all the previous ones, you start building up an idea of what's going on communally. And then once you reach a point mechanically in the game, the players have to come together and say, and choose a suspect to be the culprit.
Oh,
and so you say that, well, it's been looking like this whole time that, you know, this student right here, we've been involving them in the mystery. I think they did it. And then they'll agree and you write it down. And then from there, you immediately go to that student or that suspect trying to enact their, you know, their scheme or evil plans, and you're trying to thwart them.
Oh, that's cool. And how does that work mechanically?
So
is it, what dice do we use for conflict resolution?
Well, you're using just one D10. And then it's you know, it's not a pass fail die. It's you roll and then you choose to succeed. You can succeed or you can succeed with, you know, disadvantage or
right, a little more, a little less.
That kind of thing. Where you can basically increase your misadventure. You can break the rules to make a die roll that failed succeed. And then that'll, you know, then that'll come back later and bite you in the butt. You might get the tension. But you're rolling those dice. But really what it comes down to is how successfully you've investigated the mystery so far. So of course you always investigate, you always get the answer because it's a mystery solving game. You gotta solve the mystery.
Right,
but
you gotta have the answer eventually.
How well you do that is going to influence the difficulty of the final challenge.
Nice.
So if you've been doing great the whole time, then it's going to probably be pretty easy to thwart the culprit. But if you've been struggling a bit, they'll be more, you know, more dangerous, more skilled, and they'll be throwing more challenges your way to prevent them. And if you fail, then Magical Castle will never be the same again.
Oh, do you have an example of one of these? Let's call them complications.
Yeah, let me pull up the chart, because the way it works.
Oh, there's a chart.
There is a chart. So the way it works is when you're trying to thwart the culprit, every time you fail a test or a challenge that the culprit's put in front of you, you have to choose a consequence from the chart.
You get to pick which one.
You do get to pick which one, but they get progressively worse. And they don't refresh from year to year. So if you got out without too much trouble the first year, then the next year will be more challenging because you'll have worse outcomes.
Oh, that's cool.
Let's see here. No, this is exactly why I have an index and a table of contents. So for example, oh gosh. Here we go. We call it the jinx list. You select the jinx. You know, it starts pretty easy. Like, you know, you failed this test and there's multiple tests per the attempt to thwart the culprit. And the amount of tests that you require, it depends on how good you are at solving the mystery. But it starts with like you trip or your wand backfires or you lose an important item. So very simple things, but then it gets more dangerous. I think you will suffer a scar that cannot be healed. You'll be struck by an unbreakable curse, and it goes all the way down to, you know, you'll be permanently transfigured into an animal or object. Which you can't die in this game, but that can happen to you. And then finally, the final straw is the school will be shut down forever, and the culprit scheme succeeds, and the chapter ends.
That sounds like it can be a lot of fun and maybe a little intense.
Well, it can be, but it ramps up just like kind of in the genre. It starts a bit mellow and then it ramps up. And so this is awesome. Quite focused on the early years in a magic school. So it's about juvenile, you know, hijinks and kind of the middle school age.
Right.
Which is another element that I wanted to capture with the magic school game. There's not going into teenage drama,
Good plan.
But going a more lighthearted route. There's not really much of a focus on dark wizards in this one. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why it's different.
Nice. You said you had 3.
I did. The second one is that you can make your own spells, because the thing about Harry Potter spells, or spells in the genre, is
right.
They don't make sense. There are actually no rules of magic, and it's all very convenient. Right? It's a soft magic system.
Right.
And
I'm partial to soft magic systems, but I can see why lots of people go at them. That's okay.
And the only way to really kind of capture that feeling of the whimsical and like magical nature of this genre is not to have a set list of pre-made spells.
Right.
Now, the book, we provide some suggestions, a list of suggestions, but the way it works is whenever you learn a new spell, it gets an effect, and then it gets a whimsical limitation.
Okay.
So
like if the spell only lasts for 10 seconds or you turn into a toad, like that?
Well, something like, okay, there's a spell that I can create a copy of something, of someone.
Okay.
But on closer inspection, you realize that's a porcelain doll.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm. And it's the type of thing, so it's quite, creative based, but there's guides to kind of walk you through it. And then, the question is like, how do you balance this? You can just make up whatever you want. And that's because regardless of the spell you choose, you're still trying to roll the dice and use your abilities to solve the mystery. So even if you have a spell that freezes everyone in the castle, that might happen, but you do not succeed in your goal, regardless.
Okay.
If you don't roll well enough, or that doesn't help you solve the mystery.
Here's a question, because I have a player that this question has come up before. And when you have a spell creation system, can I offset I'm in a room full of snakes, and I enter the room and I didn't know there were going to be snakes in there. And I enter the room and there were snakes, and I'm like, I'm afraid of snakes. And I go to create a spell to deal with the snakes right now. Can I do that? Can I create one in like a split second?
Yes, you can if you're prepared. So awesome. The way you get to create a spell is there are things in this game called chapters.
Okay.
They're like little scenes that you choose to go to, and they have little like, this is what the scene's about, and you can take it the direction you want.
Oh,
but
cool.
You would choose the Magic School Days chapter, in which you go to class, and that's when you get to on your character sheet. There's a little spell book on your character sheet. Here, I can see if I can show it off. But this spell book right here.
I love the orientation. Really.
Thank you.
I love how there's art without being like taking up half the page. Like it's got style without sacrificing content. And that's
I'm in love with what the artist did with it. And I was very lucky to have him on the project.
That's very cool.
But when you go to class, you mark a little box called homework.
Okay.
And that means if there's a spell with homework mark next to it, that means you can learn a new spell whenever you want. You can choose to do it then, immediately, or you can wait and save it to when it's most necessary.
Nice. So knowing that I can make a spell in the moment leads me to the question, because if you had said no, I don't really get to answer the question. Can I prepare ahead of time? Say I'm going to run into snakes. I run into snakes now, and I leave. Instead of dealing with it in this moment, I run away instead. Can I go back to the classroom and spend extra time preparing to offset the cost of rolling dice later? Like, can I minimize my risk on the die by prepping extra beforehand? Like Batman, when he magically solves all of his problems because he already thought of that.
The long answer is yes. The short answer is no.
Okay.
So, no, you can't prep beforehand necessarily in like increasing the power of the spell. You can increase the power of the spell, but you couldn't really do it specifically. But what you can do is after you attempt something and you fail, you can then go back and go to the library and do research or whatever it is to come back better prepared. So because it kind of in the genre, students tend to bumble into things.
Yes, they do.
So not Batman.
No, not Batman.
But this is so you encounter it, then if it doesn't work out, you can always come back around and then having done your research and are better at it next time.
I see. So because it's common in the genre, the idea is to trip, fall, screw up, make a mistake, not succeed, whatever is appropriate, retreat, and then come back and pull it off this time.
Yes, that would
like when they encountered, what was it? The three-headed dog. No, he didn't have three heads. He had one head. Fluffy at the end of the Harry Potter, the first book. And they're like, oh my God, it's a giant dog. And Hermione's like, relax. It's, and then they go read and they come up with a plan.
Yeah, and that the chapter where you go do that is called the Spot of Research.
Cool. Okay.
And so each chapter has unique special abilities that only you can use during that chapter, and that's one of them.
Speaking of, do you have things like classes, specific mechanical skills that attach to specific character concepts?
We don't.
Nice.
We specifically made that choice because, generally speaking, the students in these games, in these stories, they're actually very similar.
Are not like that, right? Exactly.
Of course they're different. Like Hermione's super intelligent, and Harry's very lucky, and just like a natural, wand user, right? But they're generally very similar. But we do allow you can make your character unique in several different ways, and we kind of focus that on the way you interact with magic. So when you're creating your character, you're going to choose something like, okay, you're going to ask the question, my spell's always blank, or they always cast like a charm, they always do the trick, or they seem to have a mind of their own, stuff like that.
Right.
So you can customize how your relationship is to magic, but it's not a playbook or a class.
Okay. So you get like a little mechanical. Could I do that to something that isn't magic? Like Harry is a natural flyer and Ron clearly is not. Could I say that my skill with, instead of saying my interaction with magic is such and such, could I say my interaction with, I don't know, cleaning is such and such? Can I choose to say all of my farts smell like butterflies? I realize that's vulgar, but that kind of thing.
I understand what you mean. No, you can't. Not in this game. It's I guess we decided to make a very narrow focus.
Well, that's good.
I'm not picking. I don't think you are.
Good.
I appreciate these questions, and of course, it's exciting to talk about.
I think narrow focus games have usually they have a very specific appeal, but I think if that's what you're going for, having a rich experience for that, a rich pile of expectations for that thing is a great idea.
No, absolutely. I'm not, this is quite the genre emulation game. It's not necessarily a toolbox.
Right.
It's kind of like this. Do you want to play this story? Okay, this is what you do.
I see.
And so it does one thing really well.
Well, that's good.
It doesn't tend to simulate a wizard school life.
Okay. See, I don't know if I've ever played a system that was specifically targeted at not just being like a kid with magic powers, but being a kid with magic powers whose whole job in this moment was to solve a mystery. That's really cool. I don't think I own any of those. I've read hundreds of systems, hundreds of them, and I've never read that one. I'll have to do that. That's really cool.
Wait, like who else is going to do it? I mean, the adults in your world are useless, right?
Yeah, right. They always are. So what, on a more general subject, you'll have to send me a link. I can paste the drive-through one, but if there was someplace else you'd rather link, I'll be happy to do that too.
Yeah, let me we have a website. Let me just pull it up.
Oh, you have your own website. See how it is. I don't have my own website.
There we go. I sent it over Twitter.
Awesome. I'll post that in the YouTube channel later.
Thank you very much. You can
you bet.
You can learn more about it. There's even a short YouTube video talking about how to play just a bit.
Ooh. Oh, I love the art here. I'm on the website right now. That's very cool.
No, I'm quite lucky. The art was a combination of some local artists to me, and then some folks across the international.
The internets. Yeah. Oh, I know Daniel. Yeah. I think that's how we met, actually. Daniel's a nice guy. Yeah. We did a Heroes of Tara one shot together. He's a really nice guy.
All right, no, I think he's probably the funniest person I know.
That hurts me.
Oh, I'm
That's
sorry. Well,
okay.
I might reassess my statement after I.
No, because then if I win, he'll be wounded, and we can't have that. So
I'll play both sides.
Yeah, right. A little war profiteering between friends. um, so on a more general sense, what led you to do this? Producing a game system that's a couple hundred pages isn't like it isn't just I'm going to do it today and it's done tomorrow. That's a big thing. What drove you to do it?
I wanted to play Harry Potter with my friends. And so I was like,
nice, honest, simple. I love it.
I want to play the system. And I looked at some of the systems out there, and I think there's some great systems out there, but they weren't doing specifically what I wanted to do.
That's awesome.
The three things that I kind of was listing off. But then, so I made a game just for my friends. And then the pandemic hit. And so I had the time, it's my pandemic project, I guess. I had the time to sit down and
wait, is that a thing, a proper noun? Pandemic project?
I think
Does
so,
everybody
right?
have one?
Well, I went to a Renaissance fair recently.
Okay.
And it just opened up, right? And like everyone had like amazing costumes. Like it was a notable difference. So I think like
because COVID, right?
Everyone had the time to pursue their hobby.
That's cool. I have a whole bunch of positivity has come out of COVID. A bunch of negative too, sure. Mm-hmm. People died, people got really sick. But I also think that like the job world has changed, hopefully forever. And there's a bunch of people out there who either quit their jobs and found new jobs or had time to explore their passions. It wasn't all bad.
No, yeah, this is definitely, I think with many things in the world, a mixed bag. But no, it feels weird saying it, but I do owe a lot to the pandemic.
Tell me about it. I love my job now, and I did not have it pre-pandemic. So I'm sure there's a million other people out there going, I'm going to make a system someday. I would, but I don't know how. I would, but I don't. I think I know how, but I don't know where to start. You've done it. What would you tell them?
Oh, I would say figure out what your goals are for the system. So I would say game design is like science. It doesn't count if you don't write it down.
That's so good. I've never heard that before. That's cool.
But so you want to think about what your goals are, and then you list those out. And then as you build your system, you can refer back to the goals. And that way you can.
Oh, that's cool.
That way you can measure and like figure out what's helping you get those goals. But even then it's hard to start. Kind of decision paralysis, I would say. Read a bunch of games and pilfer all the mechanics you like. Because I mean that's how it works. Like mechanics are shared and evolved and copied and transformed. Like this game is specifically inspired by several games that I really enjoyed. And so I kind of looked at those games and I took some of the mechanics and then changed them to meet my specific goals. And then it went from there.
Now, I noticed you didn't say what those games were. Do you not want to do that?
I'd be happy to, yeah.
Oh, please, yeah, go for it.
So I was quite inspired by 3 games. First, Apocalypse World. And that kind of manifested in the chapter system that I'll talk about. I'm sure I'll talk about more later. But that plus a game called Damn the Man, Save the Music, and that's by Hannah Schaffer. And that's a game. That's a game. It's a small little indie game, and it's you're saving a music store from closing in the 90s.
That's awesome.
But what they do in that game is they break it up into scenes. So they say, well, this is the first act, this is the second act, this is the third act.
Okay.
And it changes, and that plus taking moves from Apocalypse World, that created the idea of chapters, where you choose a specific narrative scene, but then this narrative scene has specific rules for that moment in time for your characters. And that's it's almost like choosing a move, not for your character, but for the moment in time.
Right. Okay, I got it.
Yeah. And then finally, Inspectors, which is a game. It's like Ghostbusters. You're fighting. You're ghost hunters in the modern day, but it's quite comedic. And there's a lot of improvisation in Inspectors. And that was a big kind of jumping point into the mystery mechanic of building it all together.
So you mentioned the chapters. I may have heard that I'd like to talk about later. So please tell me about them.
Absolutely, because that's the third reason. That's the third reason why.
Yeah, I was just counting. I was like, wait a second. You said 3. We only talked about 2, but I think that's my fault. Well, like, by all means, tell us about the third one.
So the thing about magic school, the magic school genre, is it takes place over an entire year at school.
Right.
And so the passage of time is very important. And that's something I really wanted to hit hard with my game. And chapters makes it happen. So as I said, it's you choose a narrative focus. You choose a certain scene to do, and you can choose these multiple times. They're kind of generic scenes. Okay. Some are one time only, but you have a menu, and every player takes a turn. So we go around the table. Okay, next scene. What do you want? But time passes between these chapters, and by breaking it down into set scenes, it makes it very easy to accept that like a week has transpired between our last scene and this scene.
Okay.
Because if you play, you've in RPGs, it's really hard to get players to accept that time passes because they want to keep going.
Right.
Doing, and like, you can run a D&D adventure. Like, I'm running Curse of Strahd right now, and like, it's been a year and a half, but like, it's been like a week in game.
I tend to do a lot of pressure based in time. A concept that I got mechanical support from Index Card RPG, which we mentioned earlier. No, I'm a big fan of, roll a d4 and you've got this many rounds. The other day I did, you roll a d4 and you get this many turns. That was a whole, that was, I don't know how often I'm going to do that. I could almost watch them get flatter. Like the pressure was intense. I was like, that was
like, it's
awesome.
It's like spice. You got to sprinkle it in here and there.
Right.
But no,
if
timers
you do it all
are
the time, people get used to it.
I did not to get sidetracked, but last night we played our game, and they had 3 rounds to discover 3 necromancers in the crowd before all the townsfolk turned into zombies.
Oh, that's cool.
Which they handily took care of. But nice. But timers
they could have rolled a 1.
Yeah. So the passage of time. So the chapters provide a vehicle for you.
Does each chapter come with a specific amount of passage of time? Like, you can go to class and study, but if you do that, you lose X predetermined number of hours, say 2. Is it like that? Or is it? Go ahead. Sorry.
Whenever you start a chapter, when it's your turn to when you pick the chapter, you have to tell the group how much time has passed since the last chapter.
Oh, you get all the weight.
Yeah.
Nice.
And at the end of the day, we're not actually counting. We're not calculating the amount of time it's actually taking. It's just part of the march of the school year. I'm wanting to replicate that. Oh, like now it's summer. Now it's now it's winter. But there are a limited number of chapters. You can only play through so many chapters in a school year, and I guess that's the timer, right? Because at some point, as you're like, you can play through 12 chapters in a school year. Now, as you're nearing the end of it,
I get it. Each one is supposed to be like a month.
The game kind of triggers the culprit if you haven't done it already. It can be a month, but actually what we have here is there's the seasons down here. So you mark them off as you go through every 4 chapters, you mark off a season.
Man, that art is so cool. I really can't get enough of how it's low profile art and it's still everywhere. And I love it. Because
I'll make sure
straight lines are overrated.
PDFs of it. Yeah.
That's
no, I'm in love with it. I'm so lucky. And also you get to name the chapter. So after you finish a chapter, the table gets to name that chapter they just did. And then you write that down. And then when you finish a school year, which you could finish a school year in like 1 or 2 sessions, you get to name the book that the school year came from.
That's cool.
This is the final page, the final character sheet. There's 3 character sheets, but it's not as overwhelming as it sounds. This is
is this like year 1 Harry Potter, year 2 Harry Potter?
Yeah, down here's your little bookshelf right here, so you can be like, This game was something and the blank. This was something and the blank.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. Because those are some of the best parts. And do you have, at the risk of getting, well, I'm not at the risk, I'm going to. I just forgot her name. Rowling is not like the nicest person in the whole world. Do you have a magical school book in the genre that matches the system you've made that I might recommend that doesn't say Harry Potter on the cover?
Oh, let's see. Yeah, well, Arcane Academy, I think.
Okay, cool, nice.
And to be fair, like Rowling is mentioned once in the inspirations.
Oh no, I wasn't trying to throw shade on you at all. I just if I can point joy at somebody else like you, I probably will.
I'm going to make sure I'm saying the right one. But it's a Powered by the Apocalypse.
Okay.
Game, and it's quite well done, actually. Oh, where is it? It's Arcane Academy. Yes, there we go. Yes, it's K. It's Arcane Academy by Jordan. Let's see. What's his last name? It doesn't say on the
Palmer.
Yeah, there you go. And it's quite well done. They also realize that it's important. You can't like have a list of spells. And they have a move, which is, I think it's basically solve anything with magic, which is very in genre. And I think it's quite well done, especially the art. I think I discovered that the Arcane Academy Kickstarter had launched about 4 months before my Kickstarter launch. And I was like, oh, good on you, Jordan. You beat me to it.
Well, for what it's worth,
it's really good.
I'm familiar with your system first, so you get the props from me. Like I said, I've read hundreds of systems, and I've never heard of one that is. I've played targeted systems, of course, but not one that is targeted at this specific thing. One of my favorite systems that is targeted is Ryutama, which is gorgeous, and is specifically targeted at Miyazaki style travel, which is niche as hell.
That's very niche. I would enjoy playing that.
It's a good time. It's the only system I've ever played that has mechanical support tomorrow for your character eating a hot bowl of ramen today. And you might travel all across the world, like to the top of a faraway mountain that no one's ever heard of and fight a demon up there. But you're going to get, and you might beat the demon, but you're going to get way more experience just for walking that far than you are for meeting the demon.
It's the journey, not the destination.
Exactly. It's weird as hell, and it's a great time. And it's also its mechanics and its setting, its system and setting are like irrevocably bound. And I think your system reminds me of that it does a specific thing really well. And I don't know as if there are enough of those. I think a lot of people try and cast the net as wide as possible, which means make a system that does all the things. And very few systems that try to do all the things, actually can do all the things without lots of editing.
Well, I think everyone has different goals and different needs as players. Because there's some really cool toolbox games out there that I have quite the respect for. It's just I suppose we tend to design things that we would really enjoy playing, but so I tend to focus on specific games, but I have some great respect for the toolbox games, that the emulation games that let you exist in a world, not necessarily existing in a story.
Right. So speaking of, what is your favorite thing about the table? You could be reading a comic book, you could be watching TV, you could be playing a video game. I mean, why Tabletalks?
Oh.
What do you think that they have that literally all forms of other entertainment don't have?
Well, I think because I tend to be a forever DM. So I come from a position of storytelling.
Okay.
Here's why. It's fast food storytelling.
Okay.
Because I can just get a story out there really fast. I don't have to think about it too much. It's just fun. It's easy. And I think that's my primary draw to it. But it's the ability just to, tell a story without writing a book. And then, well, it must be the social interaction, because I'm quite a fan of board games, and I enjoy
that's my, I was thinking about it when you said it. I like, what the hell is my pandemic project? My pandemic project was board games. I owned like 2 prior to COVID, and now I own something like 70. Like
that's incredible.
That was me.
Did you have to buy extra shelves?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, no, I had a friend of mine build them. But yes, we have 4 shelves now that we did not have then. Yeah.
And have you played them all?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's very impressive, actually.
Hey, thanks. Oh yeah. I got this thing. When I get a new board game, I kind of need to play it before I play another board game. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But it's like the social that you get it from board games, but I think there's a sense of camaraderie you have from a constant RPG group. That is quite nice. There's a ritual to it almost. There's a shared emotional connection for longer campaigns, and it's that type of social interaction that I think is amazing.
I think you're onto something there. Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think it's the shared. Zbashu had a YouTube video that, for reasons I don't understand, he took down, which is a shame. One of these days I'm going to poke him on Twitter. It's wonderful. And it basically explores the idea that the moments you have with your players around the table exist like that only for the people who are there in the moment. Because you can tell people about that night. You can tell people about the fight with the bandits, the Tarask, or whatever. But it's not the same. No matter how good a storyteller you are, no matter how much you tell them, it won't be the same. They weren't there.
Absolutely.
So that moment in time only exists in your memories. And I think that, I don't know, if you could crystallize that, right, that would be like bonding liquid. It's really something. Anyway.
No, that's true. It's, I mean, like, whenever you're telling someone about your campaign, they're always being very courteous to listen, I think.
Yeah, you're probably right. They're like, yeah, we're gonna put up with this because they like it and we like them. Yeah, that's a good point. So if there's a system you really love that isn't the one you made, obviously you love that one. Hopefully you love that one. You made it. If you're looking for something, if you're looking to sit down and play something that isn't that, what's your? Would you have like a top system, top 3?
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's a top. Okay. My normal answer. The answer that I thought it was, that usually it used to be, was the Fantasy Flight Star Wars Edge of the Empire.
Okay.
I think that's might be my favorite system. I think the narrative dice, well, first of all, really cool, but I think it's a really cool balance between gamification and mastery of mechanics, like the crunch of it, plus a narrative game. And so that's a good compromise for me and my group.
Okay.
Because you can get pretty gamey with the stats and the equipment.
True.
But the system still has storytelling rules with the dice.
Right.
And then there's a new game out there that has
I heard they used to be. It sounds like drama. Okay.
Oh, what? I'm talking not Star Wars. I'm talking about the new game for me.
Oh, I see. I misunderstood. I'm sorry.
No good. Central Comics RPG.
Oh, yes. I've been meaning to look at that.
Might be becoming my favorite. I think it's amazing. Like, it might be becoming my favorite game. First of all, the book is incredible. Like, you can see where the money went. Like good. The art, I quite like the art. It's very colorful. It's actually very well laid out. I think it's aspirational how they laid it out. Like, it's so easy to use with the index, and so very usability, very good. And then the mechanics, like, they really do a good job of figuring out the superhero genre and putting that on the table. I think quite often the problem was maybe not a problem, but the hurdle with superhero games is, how do you do powers, right? Do you have a list of powers? Do you make it very freeform? And that's always been a bit of a tough point, I think, with superhero games. And they've done something where they handle how you get the powers very well, and it's very flexible, but it's very flexible what you can do, but it's still it still fits in a well-oiled, gameplay loop.
How would you compare it to something like the hero system?
I'm actually not that familiar with the hero system.
Okay, no worries. How would you compare it to something like Index Card RPG, which has a superhero subsetting?
Okay, it's similar because it has a timer.
Okay.
Every encounter has a timer. Every encounter ends after a certain amount of rounds, and everyone's abilities and most of everything in the game is tied to where you are in that round tracker.
Okay.
So your most powerful abilities you cannot use until the fight is almost over, or until your hit points are almost at 0.
So if I'm the Hulk, I can't do my maximum lift until either the world is almost over or I am almost dead. Is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Fascinating. Okay,
so
very cool.
Why didn't they use that before, type of thing?
Well, because I can. Before the drama.
And then, but there is that's a similarity.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in terms of it's elegantly simplistic.
Okay.
It cuts the fat out. For example, most minions, what they are, they're represented by a dice.
Mm-hmm.
And when you roll to attack, you're rolling against that like number on the dice, and you like turn the dice down to represent the minion like losing hit points.
Yep.
And so it's very simple. It's just like the dice turns, and then it's gone.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, yeah. It's also visual, and if I'm usually theater to the mind, we don't even VTT, just like this.
Yeah.
But if we're gonna play with a visual aid of some sort, no shade on people who want or need those. I had a player who had a serious brain concussion when he was a kid. So as an adult, he essentially can't stay focused on a thing he can't touch. So we used a map and lots of minis, and no shade or anything.
Well, that's fun by itself.
It is. Yeah. It's weird. I never thought I'd be the guy who was big on minis. As an adult, I still don't. They're not my favorite way to go. And as a kid, yeah. But now I own a crap ton of board games, and I've decided that they have enough minis, and I need to learn how to paint them. And I can't believe that I'm the guy who's going to learn to paint minis so I can paint my board game minis.
I think I have a similar arc. I used to be very theater of the mind only, no grid combat, but I've been playing with a heavy, skirmish game D&D grid combat minis.
Okay.
For the campaign I'm in right now, and it's been so fun. Like it's very tactile.
Oh yeah.
Which is just a whole nother element of the joy of it. But I've been using the Pathfinder pawns. It's a little
Pathfinder makes pretty good minis. Yeah.
Little cardboard things, and they're great because I like storage. And
yeah. Arknight makes some really, really great flat pack minis. They're plastic. Yeah. They're painted on both sides. They have the unique front and back, the whole thing. They're painted when you get them, right? The color's baked right into the plastic sheet. And you can store like 1,000 of those things in like one of those recipe boxes that holds index cards.
That's the main thing that keeps me from getting like I guess 3D minis and terrain is I don't want to store them.
Where are you going to put them? And if you can't have just one goblin mini, because your players are going to fight a bunch of goblins, so you're going to need a whole bunch of those things. And then I'm going to need more shelves just to hold the minis, and we can't have that because my house doesn't get any bigger just because I bought more stuff.
So for the final reason that Single Comics is like Index Card RPG is they basically use index cards. They have you write down, so they have you write down like mechanics on an index card, like place it, like they'll be like train derailing and put it down in front of the card, in front of the players. And so they'll show you like effects. And then like when when there's like a debuff against you, like a riding crowd, you write that down, riding crowd +3, and it's just right there in front of you.
Yeah, I think lots of players, the first time I pitched the concept of either a static modifier that you can see or room numbers, like from Index Card RPG, they didn't go, well, doesn't that take some of the nuance out of it? Yes. If everybody in the room knows that what they have to do is 14, jump a pit 14, punch a dragon in the nards 15, whatever, then yeah, okay, sure. You lost some nuance. I don't know as if that's arguable, but you also gained a bunch of speed of play, and I will totally make the trade.
And tension too.
Oh yeah.
When you can see the number, then every roll is meaningful. Otherwise, it's like, oh, I wonder how. It's kind of like when you roll the dice, you don't react until the DM says something.
Right. I don't know how I did. I have to ask. Right.
Yeah. I guess that's like the balance of where the gamification comes in, and the immersion and narrative, or
Oh yeah. So what's your if you could like snap your fingers and adjust every system in the world to be your preferred page length and like crunchiness, what is that? We talking 250 pages, 300 pages, 10 pages?
200 to 300 pages.
Okay.
And
how much of that is crunch and how much of that is like art and ideals and stuff?
Most of it is art and ideals. Awesome. And it's not simulationist. Although I respect simulation, but it's not what I'm playing.
Same. I no shade on anybody who loves it, but it's not my jam.
It's
my favorite system in the whole world. All the mechanics fit on one half of one side of an index card.
It's a narrative art. It's a narrative RPG that has a gamified, loop to it.
Do you prefer systems that have stock hit points, like you can get dead?
Oh, you know what you mean? Like you hit 0 and you're dead?
Well, zero that include the concept of death before the player might necessarily be okay with that. Like in 5e D&D, you can totally get up off the ground, but death is a thing that can happen to you. Whereas like in the Wild Sea system, characters simply don't have hit points. So player characters die when players decide they die for the story, and not a second before that.
I've enjoyed both. But if I had to choose one, I would choose player chooses death.
Really? Okay.
Because I think I tend to focus on I tend to enjoy the narrative part more, or a game that kind of at least suggests when you should die.
That's an interesting idea.
Or maybe you can only die when certain narrative circumstances are met.
Okay.
So I don't know if you're playing the Wise Mentor playbook. Once you get the other characters system important in the story, then you can die, type of thing.
Right. Once you've bequeathed your wisdom, right?
Yeah.
You've essentially done your job, and you can die now. Right.
But I mean, it's totally fun to, I do enjoy the tactical skirmish game part too, or just a game where you can die. Like that happened. We had a player death last night, actually.
In Strahd, I bet you did.
Strahd, yeah.
I bet you did.
It felt horrible because like I realized I love that character, and like I'm mourning him just like the players are.
Right.
And
do you think that go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say it's probably good for the story that happened, and it was good for the feeling of the table that it went down, but it feels bad now.
Do you think that it brings more weight to your, like, knowing that you will one day die? Does that offer extra weight, do you think, to the choices you make while you're alive?
Absolutely.
And me too. And I'm not sure that I can give those up at the table. Like I ran a Wild Sea campaign for months, and there is no character hit points. And I loved Wild Sea, the system. I loved it. But I don't know as if I would prefer a system wherein there's no risk of mechanical death.
Yeah. Well, I guess like I would say maybe it's not. I think what's important is a risk of failure.
Agreed.
A lose state. If there is a lose state in RPGs, which kind of isn't.
Kind of isn't. I make this argument all the time. RPGs or D&D and stuff like it are not games. The term game does not apply. A thing is a game if it has an inherent win/loss condition, win/loss condition.
Interesting.
Agreed to before all parties before play begins. This covers football, chess, tiddlywinks, checker, soccer, poker, drinking games with your college friends, horsing around the yards with your kids. It covers literally every game ever. And this also means that things like Skyrim are not games until you decide that they are. Skyrim is an immersive sim. The idea is that you, as the player, kind of decide what your own goal is. And Skyrim is designed to offer up emergent gameplay opportunities based upon what it is that you're doing. You have the option to choose to live your in-game life as a potato farmer. And in something like, I don't know, Ratchet and Clank, you don't, right? You'll Ratchet the hero, and this is the deal. And the game, you win when you beat the final boss. Whether you like it or not, that's the win condition.
I've heard a lot of definitions of what a game is. And
agreed. There are lots of them.
Like, I think this is definitely a top contender for a definition. But it's always a struggle to define it, I think.
Tell me about it. That is maybe not my definition. I couldn't find one I liked better, so I had to come up with my own. If you're going to sit down and teach somebody to play chess, and you're going to teach me how to play chess, and we've agreed that you're not here to beat me, you're here to teach me. If we both know that, right, then that is the win-loss condition. The win-loss is that we win, you win. If I have a better understanding of chess when I leave than when I sat down. But
yeah,
if we go to play football, and conversely, if we go to play football and Jimmy throws the game, well, we all had the expectation that he would not do that, right? So he played in bad faith.
Yeah.
Anyway, I
will rephrase my answer to maybe not a loss condition, but a enforced mechanical consequences are very important.
I wasn't trying to disagree.
I don't think you were disagreeing, but I think I disagree with myself.
I see. I know what you meant. If the situation will become worse, whether or not it's permanently worse, then yeah, maybe you lost, right?
Or even like, so even if the system doesn't, you can't die in the system, but maybe in the system, for example, if you're trying to save a failing music store,
right,
you can't die in the system, but the music store can close.
Right, which means since you failed to do the thing that you set out to do, and now you can't like try again, right? The store's closed. The store's closed.
I wouldn't call it a loss because you're telling a story, but it's a consequence of weight or a enforced ending.
Right, much in the same way that you can watch a football game with your friends and hope the Patriots win, and when they lose and you go, bah, you still get a bunch of really great memories out of that. They lost. I'm not sure you did.
Yeah, your characters might have lost, but you didn't.
Right. So we're just about out of time on the hour. Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't?
Oh, what an excellent question.
Oh, thanks.
No, I mean, I think it's been pretty cool. I've enjoyed talking about TTRPGs with you.
Oh, awesome. Same here. Do you have a favorite sound? It's my favorite question. Like the Doppler effect specifically?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's freaking cool. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh gosh, well, thank you so much. I hope you have a great evening.
That's the plan. I would love to talk about this further when I have more time.
Oh, please.
Do you have a group slot available? I'd love to, or a let's play somewhere. I'd love to see it in action.
Actually, yes. No, I would love to. I've been trying to. You mean specifically?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've been meaning to sit down and play it, but I actually have not played it without a playtest in mind.
Oh.
Since so this would be. But I've been like, I want to play this for fun.
Right.
That's what, so no, I'm trying to get a group together. So awesome. I will reach out to you. I'll message you.
Sounds good.
Well,
it's not the kind of thing I usually agree to for long periods of time, but
one shot.
I might change my mind on this one. Anyway.